After emerging from the Chapel of Eternal Triumph, the kill team met with Seneschal Thaddeus Crail and Veronius's elite guard. Warp portals had opened on the Sensorium relay deck, and long-range Vox was offline. Jaquel Veronius's elite Void Guard stood in rigid formation, forming a steel cordon around a mass of traumatized survivors. 80 chapel-goers, stunned, bloody, and wide-eyed. Some sobbed, others stared at nothing. The warp had touched them, whether briefly or deeply, that remained to be seen. Crail held out the data slate, hollow rendered schematics flickering with interference. A red blossom marked Deck 9A, the relay nexus. Additional glyphs blinked across the sub-deck grid. There's a backup Vox relay in auxiliary command, aft and deep, manual only. No reinforcements reachable. Caster stepped forward. Could we spike the Geller field? Drive the warp back? Crail nodded. Possible, but not from here. You'd need to physically activate the override core in the Geller field sanctum upper rear spire. The kill team briefly conferred and agreed to split up. Caster summarized. Nurses, activate the Geller field. That is your primary objective. If you can bring Vox channels back online, do so, but the field takes priority. Take 30 of Veronius's best. Move quietly. Cut clean. Nurses nodded once, already checking his auspex. Caster then turned toward the chapel-goers. He stared at them for a long moment. The vacant eyes, the trembling hands, the stillness of those who had seen too much and survived by sheer chance. Some of them may be touched by corruption, he said. We can't leave them loose on the decks. He turned back to Crail. Seal them inside the chapel. Post 20 of your men to watch them. If any show signs of warp taint, you burn them. Fast, clean. Crail didn't argue. He gave a single nod and barked orders. The decision tore through the crowd like a thunderclap. Grief became panic. Voices broke in screams and pleading. Some were herded, others dragged. All were forced back into the once sacred hall, now a tomb for the bodies of their kin. The Space Marines turned away. The rest of us move for the relay deck, Caster said. We hold it, or nothing else matters. Crail spoke, low and grim. There are two ways forward, fast and exposed, or longer and secure. The quick route's open, but a perfect choke point if they're waiting. The other's a maze of sealed hatches and reinforced corridors, slower, safer. The kill team exchanged a glance. We take the fast path, Caster said. If the relay deck falls while we hesitate, it won't matter how safe we were getting there. The kill team moved through the arterial spine of the ducal circlet like a spear point, flanked by 10 of Veronius's elite and shadowed by the ever-watchful Seneschal Thaddeus Crail. They descended toward the train decks, a magnet-shunted transit line that should have carried them half the journey in minutes. Instead, they found vandalism and silence. The platform was deserted. Carriages torn open, cabling stripped, the command cogitator smashed in with deliberate malice. The scent of scorched oil and incinerated insulation hung in the air. No bodies, no tracks, just nothing. This is wrong, Crail murmured, eyes locked on the auspex scanner in his palm. Even during a riot, there would be looters. Caster said nothing. His own auspex showed the same. Static-laced emptiness. No Vox chatter, no heat signatures, just cold steel and echoes. With the train out of commission, Crail led them into a nearby warehouse subcomplex. There, behind locked blast doors and administrative servitors long shut down, they found crate-lifter hover barges. Crude but functional. They loaded the troops and pressed on. As they passed through the habdeck levels, the silence deepened. This floor should have been a crush of civilian life, Families, medics' wards, manufactoria shifts. Instead, abandoned corridors, open doors. It wasn't death. It was absence. And that was worse. When they reached the trade district, they glimpsed life at last. A dozen souls in tattered void suits, hunched and desperate, scrambling through broken food dispensers. One looked up as the Astartes passed and bolted with a sack of Nutrical. No resistance, just hunger and fear. They pressed on. Crossing into the arterial causeway toward the Imperial Noble District, the team passed a sprawling ornamental garden ringed by angelic statuary and silver-leafed trees. But something was wrong. 500 people stood in rigid formation, gathered around a figure who preached from the toppled remains of a once glorious imperial statue, now lying in ruin like a felled titan. The preacher's voice echoed faintly across the square, half-heard words like "purge the gold" and "cast down the false light." The kill team didn't stop, only a glance. "We're out of time," Castor growled. The gate to the Imperial Noble District should have been shut, locked down under 10 meters of reinforced adamantium and faith-bound machine code. Instead, it had been cut open with what could only have been plasma weaponry. The metal was melted, not blasted, the inner bulkhead sagging inward like wax under a torch. They passed through the gaping breach and were forced to dismount. Ahead, the great avenue was choked with makeshift barricades, built from toppled statues, shattered balconies, and splintered marble facades. Burn marks scorched the walls of once regal estates. Hololithic banners flickered, corrupted into gibbering color. The elite guard fanned out in tactical formations, clearing side alleys with silent precision. Then came the shot, a high-pitched whine. Then the hollow crack of Lasburn meeting skull. One of the guards dropped, blood steaming from the smoking hole in his helm. The team spun, bolters ready. They reached the alley in 2 heartbeats. Voidmen, 6 of them bearing the rogue trader's colors. They raised their rifles and opened fire, but they were not facing deckhands now. Lucas Danit surged forward, his armored frame a blur, lobbed a frag grenade into their cover. The explosion ripped the traitors apart. Shrapnel tore through plasteel and flesh. Smoke billowed. The echo of their betrayal faded fast. Castor didn't pause. Back on mission. The kill team moved on at full sprint, far beyond the pace of the elite guard struggling to keep up. Their power-armored strides echoed like thunder through the abandoned decks of the ducal circlet. Time had become an enemy now, and every second mattered. They reached the sensorium relay deck through a final corridor lined with tattered banners and cracked frescoes of the Emperor's gaze. The main gate to the relay was once a grand sanctum portal, carved with litanies of perception and faith, watched over by marble visages of navigators long dead. Now, it had been blasted open, the inner doors warped outward, blackened by warp flame. Symbols carved from the inside. Reality bruised around the threshold. The team stepped toward it. At the base of the relay deck's main entrance stairs, the noise hit them, a cacophony of gunfire, screams, and metal groaning under pressure. The stench of burning promethium and sorcery twisted in the air. Then the Vox sparked to life. "Sensorium team to command. Repeat, we need reinforcements near the navigator's chamber. They're breaking through." The line went to static. They ascended fast. Boots pounded steel. Their passage stirred banners long untouched. At the top, the stairs branched starboard, where Icarus Dawn reached the landing first. He emerged into a storm. Voidmen, half a squad, had dug in behind a barricade of shattered conduit and bolted crates. Muzzle flashes lit their eyes like lightning. Half fired into a nearby chamber on the right, The rest unleashed salvos down a corridor to the left. They were disorganized, exhausted, and panicked, surrounded on all sides by warp-spawned nightmares. Icarus's attempts at order met only fear-warped babble. They're everywhere, coming through, burning. Can't hold them. The portals. Emperor, save us. Then they saw the Space Marines, and the Voidmen did not cheer, did not weep, but their hands steadied. They fought harder. The kill team took up position behind the embattled defenders, just as a pair of Allures demons and a knot of leering daemonettes surged from the right chamber in a flurry of jewel-edged claws and perfume-laced agony. Luces and Sarpenthis hurled frag grenades down the corridor. Smoke, blood, and writhing limbs followed. Then came the melee. Icarus was already moving, his silent vow answering their screams. His executioner's blade rose and fell, carving through skin that shimmered like polished obsidian. One Allures turned her eyes on him and whispered something awful, and then she had no head. Demonettes moaned in pleasure as Sarpenthis' eviscerator ripped through them. The demons fell, but the ship groaned. Another metallic concussion ripped through the floor. The Vox shrieked, "They're breaching the inner door! Emperor, we can't!" Cut off. Castor strode through the silence like judgment. "Navigator's chamber, now!" The Voidmen pointed, not clearly, not calmly, but enough. Port side, through the double bulkhead, left past the comms relay. Watch for the... They didn't finish the sentence, because the next room was screaming. The port corridor was a ruin, smoke-thick power lines dangling, devotional icons smeared with blood. Another squad of Voidmen, what was left of them, lay broken in a heap behind a shattered pillar. Those still breathing barely registered the kill team's arrival. "You're done," Castor barked. "Fall back to the barricade. Make your deaths count." They didn't argue. Beyond the door, madness waited. Two possessed mortals hovered in defiance of gravity, cloaked in runes carved into their own flesh, eyes replaced by burning script, mouths whispering to gods no man should name. Icarus charged. As Icarus passed the second archway, he saw them, pink horrors, giggling as they flung warp flame, pouring from a gaping warp portal carved through the floor of a command chamber. And in their midst, a rogue psyker, arms raised high, wailing to the stars that should not be named. The portal shimmered like a wound in the world. Castor struck first, blade blazing with relic light, carving into the psyker's side with a wrathful cry. Sarpenthis followed, driving him to the ground. As his body broke, the portal shrieked and collapsed, banished in a flash of blue flame. But the horrors remained. They screamed and split, pinks into blues, blues into brimstones, fire-born and cackling. The air was thick with psychic static and heat haze. "Brothers, with me!" Castor roared, calling upon the power of his relic blade. Wrathful light spilled from its edge, blinding demons and rallying his kin. Luces drove forward, chainsword shrieking. Icarus cut a demon down, only for two more to rise in its place. Through it all, the walls shuddered. Distant explosions, screams, the final vox call from within the navigator's chamber. "It's through, O throne! The horror!" And then, nothing. Castor didn't wait. There were still horrors to kill, but the real threat was ahead. "Sarpenthis, with me. The rest, finish them." They ran. At the bend in the corridor, Castor and Sarpenthis slowed. Gunfire erupted nearby. Another squad of Voidmen dug in and barely holding back the tide. But to the right, they saw something different. A wide, decorated archway, its bronze doors blown open, edges blackened by plasma scoring. The sanctum beyond was unnaturally dark, as if light feared to enter. "There," Castor muttered. "That's it." They stepped through. The chamber beyond was warped with heat and shadow. Machine spirit conduits sparked above, shedding strobe-like flashes that revealed the enemy in jagged glimpses. 3 chaos spawns shambled into view, towering, grotesque flesh labyrinths of sinew and toxin, daubed with runic ichor and twisted faces. They dropped from ceiling beams and unfurled spiked tentacles as they moved. But at the center of it all, dancing with gleeful contempt, was a creature Castor knew. Aravitu Urhal. The demon capered across the floor in a body of pink and gold, gemmed and lolling, twisted with joy. It clapped stubby hands and spun like a perverse ballerina. "It's him," Castor growled. "Masintos's cur." Aravitu Urhal squealed with delight and vanished through the next door. The spawns charged, tentacles lashed, claws raked. One struck Sarpenthis full in the chest, dragging him back into a pile of wreckage. Poison slicked their skin, dripping from glands no biology could explain. Castor took one head-on, relic blade glowing, cleaving through limb and fang after being wounded by a razor-sharp claw. Sarpenthis, hurt but unyielding, rose and drove his blade into another, only to be struck down as one of the demon's spiked tentacles pierced his armor at the shoulder joints, leaving a deep wound. The third spawn nearly crushed him. Castor answered, "Steel and fury." The beasts fell, just in time. Icarus and Lucas arrived, bolters at the ready. Lucas dropped to Sarpenthis immediately, administering medici stimulants and checking Castor for signs of toxin saturation. Then came the Vox. "This is Krail. We've reached the relay proper. Supporting the Voidmen now. 10 minutes out from your position. Hold if you can." But there was no time to wait. The kill team could see it through the open threshold ahead. Warp light, like a rift in sanity. The navigator's chamber, glowing with blue flame. And in its center, a massive mauler fiend, its claws raised, lasher tendrils writhing, about to impale the cowering navigator on its spiked limbs. "Go!" Castor bellowed. Icarus charged first, firing his bolt pistol, drawing the beast's gaze. The mauler fiend turned with a howl, metal screeching, and thundered across the chamber, straight for the Judiciar. They collided. Fists met ceramite. Lasher tendrils wrapped around Icarus's limbs, slamming him into the floor. Icarus answered with a roar, swinging his executioner's blade and severing a pressurized fluid line, spraying black ichor across the chamber. Then, a shriek. Aravitu Urhal reappeared, flinging coruscating warp flame toward Sarpenthis. It missed, scouring the wall in runic fire. Lucas turned, plasma pistol raised and fired. The shot struck true. The demon's body shivered, screamed, and evaporated into the warp with a sound like laughter and bone cracking. "Enough of that," Lucas muttered. Together, the kill team turned on the demon engine. It fought like a starved beast, wild, relentless. But now it was alone. Blows rained down, blades pierced its core, and at last it collapsed, spewing sparks and warp ash, its core going cold. The navigator was saved. As Lucas tended the wounded, the Vox crackled again, and this time it was Nursus. "This is Ged. Geller field stabilized. Vox relays reconnected. Took longer than expected, but we made it." He sounded worn but resolute. "We didn't engage the uprisers. I showed them what happened in the chapel, used pict feed from my servo skull. Enough of them realized Pontiff Emikel lied. They dispersed. We have comms again." A chorus of transmissions followed, urgent, overlapping. "Engine deck breached. Secundus gate lost. Varonius to all stations. Reinforcements to deck Eterna. My men are being overrun." The ship was alive again and in flames. The kill team stood in the ruined chamber, weapons cooling, navigator safe, hearts still thundering. The battle was not over. But the ducal circlet was no longer blind.